So one of the issues with uploading a default photo is this box right here. Now, sometimes photos don't necessarily look good in there. Many times you try uploading your logo or something into that position and it just doesn't fit right. Sometimes it stretches it out, sometimes it crops part of it off, and you really need to make sure that your icon or your logo looks good even in the small little images down here. See how it kind of crops it down into some tiny, like even with my logo here, it's really small and you can't really tell what it is. However, I feel that it's okay because it's the same logo that's up top here. So because of that, you at least want to make sure that your profile photo on your page looks good in this section. And so that might require doing a little bit of cropping, because sometimes your image that you want to upload into this position it didn't start out as a square. If I click on here and view the image full size, it's going to load as a square because I created it as a square on purpose. I didn't want Facebook to have to do the math on its own and figure it out. And before I go any further, this is actually a response to a question that we've already received on our course over there, our Udemy course. So this video is bonus content, but what we're going to look at really quick is a couple of ways to fix this. Now, I'm going to show you, I'm actually in Photoshop here, and I've got the icon that I created for my course. Now, one of the things that Udemy does is it crops my my image, and so I had to make it a little different. I had to kind of restructure it. Originally, I thought I could just put, Facebook really big all the way across and fill up as much of the space as I possibly could. However, sometimes it takes uploading it and seeing what's going to happen before you're actually able to determine what Facebook or even some of these other websites are going to do with your logo or your photo that you're going to add. So I'm actually in Adobe Photoshop CS6, but you can do this in any version of Photoshop. If you're on a Mac, you can also get a software called Pixelmator, which is significantly cheaper than Photoshop. Pixelmator is available, I believe, for I think like $29.99 or something like that in the Mac App Store. And if you're on a PC, you can use any image editing software that you could find. Sometimes you might have to, purchase some sort of software, but nonetheless, you should be able to do this in most, photo editing software. So I'm going to teach you how to make it kind of look a little bit neat. So what we're going to do is actually open a logo of mine. So we're going to I'm just going to go into my computer where I have that stored and grab my Hill Media Group logo. So I'm just going to open the logo. This is essentially the same thing that you probably would have gotten from your graphic designer. You probably, get your logo like this in an EPS or a PDF or some sort of format. And if I was to upload this right here, Facebook would add a bunch of white all the way around it and probably cut off portions of it, and it would just be a mess. So what I'm going to show you is a couple of things that you can do to change this and make it fit Facebook a little bit better. If you're using a different photo editing software, you're just going to have to possibly try and figure it out, because I can't show you every single photo editing software out there. I figured I'd just show you Photoshop. And even though this is Photoshop CS6, which is still in beta, this is going to work with any version of Photoshop. I'm not doing anything that's new or specific to Photoshop. So the first thing you're going to want to do is get your crop tool. In Photoshop, you just press the letter C to get your crop tool. And then you should be able to go up and change the aspect ratio. So choose 1:1 square. And this is going to look a little bit different in this version of Photoshop. And what's really cool is right now you can actually go and download Photoshop CS6 from Adobe Labs for free and play around with it. And then, of course, probably in another 30 days or so, at the time of recording this, it will expire and you'll have to buy it, but nonetheless you can use it temporarily. So with your crop tool, stretch out across and move your logo into the middle. this crop feature looks a little bit different in Photoshop CS6 than it might in some of the other applications that you're familiar with. But all you need to do is just make sure that you have your logo with a box around it basically now, and you can use the crop tool and drag around that and add additional real estate to your image. Doesn't matter if it's centered yet. I'll show you how to center it. After you've stretched it out, just hit the return key or the enter key. Now I'm going to hit the V key on my keyboard to get my pointer back, or you can click on the arrow pointer up here. I'm going to, you can see here I've got my layer over on the right hand side. That's just my logo layer. I'm going to add an additional layer underneath that by holding down Command, or if you're on a PC it would be Control, and you see it added a layer underneath. Now what I'm going to do is change my background color of this, and you can do that by holding down Command and hitting the delete key, and that's going to set your background color. Or if you want to choose whatever color you have for foreground, you can choose your Option or Alt key and then hit the delete key as well, so you can kind of see what it looks like. Now both of your layers over here, make sure they're both selected, so click on one of them and then hold down the Command key on a Mac or Control key on a PC to select them both. And then up here you're going to see some alignment tools. The first one is to align it centered on the vertical center, and then the other one is to align it center along the horizontal centers. So now our logo is centered in the middle of our big box, and as you can see here, this would be something that we can upload to Facebook. I may even want to add a little bit more real estate around this just to make sure, so I can go ahead and do that. We'll click back on our bottom layer, fill it with white. We'll select both our layers again. Make sure we have our pointer, our move tool selected, and then we'll center this once again. So now we have it on white, and it generally would look pretty good if we uploaded it to Facebook. Now, if you want to get fancy and do a little bit of something to make the background pop, you could change the color, but you'll notice making a solid color of blue kind of takes a little bit of vibrancy away from my logo. So there's things that you can do to your logo, such as adding a drop shadow or something like that, just to kind of make it pop off the screen, maybe even an outer glow or something just to make it pop a little bit more. Or you can turn your background into a gradient instead. You can choose the gradient tool over here, which may show up as the paint bucket tool, but all you have to do is click and hold, choose the gradient tool, and then come up here and choose the colors that you would like that gradient to be. So we can start by choosing this base color down here. We'll click color, and then from this range of colors we can choose where we want the outermost color to be. So I'm talking about the color closest to the edge of your square image here. So choose that color, hit OK, and then down here click on this little arrow and then click on color and choose the color that you want in the center. I usually go with a lighter color in the center than on the outside, so I'm going to lighten this one up just a little bit more, and then you can click on the B and just change the value of your color just to make it a little bit lighter, and hit OK. I'll hit OK again. So we have our gradient selected. Place your cursor somewhere where you believe is the middle of your square. It's kind of hard to tell exactly where the middle of your square is. You might actually have to go in and drag down rulers or something like that. For example, I can click up in this area and drag a ruler down to the center of my image, and it should snap into place, and then grab and find the center of my image right there. Place my cursor right in the middle of that. Notice that I also have a radial gradient selected. There are different types of gradients that we can select: a linear gradient, radial, angle, reflective, or diamond, and I want radial selected. So I'm going to click in the middle. I'm going to place my cursor in the middle, and I'm going to hold down the Shift key and then click and drag up. See what happened? I just added kind of a white spotlight or a lighter blue spotlight behind my logo. I could press Command or Control H to hide or show my little my lines that I added. So now you can see it kind of pops a little bit more, and you could play around with that. I'm going to bring my lines back. Notice that if I hold down Shift and just click and drag a little bit, I get a much smaller spotlight. So depending on how far away you drag is how big of a spotlight area you're going to get in the middle. And to me, that kind of makes your icon or your logo pop a little bit more. It makes for a much more interesting look. So for me, that would be a good looking image for me to upload to Facebook. Keep in mind, try to keep a little bit of real estate around the outsides of your logo so that way it doesn't crop it off. And if you're using an image in here instead, for example, a photo of a person or something, think along the same guidelines that you need to square crop that image for it to look at its best in Facebook. So now all we need to do is save this photo. So go up to File and go down to Save for Web. Take this quality slider and slide it all the way over to 100%, or just click here and drag it over to 100%. Just go with the largest size that your image can be. Right now, this one's 575 by 575. But if you have the ability to start this out as a larger image, that's fine too. You just want to make sure that it's probably at least 300 by 300 pixels, because if it's smaller than that, Facebook is going to try and scale it up, which means that you're going to have a pixelated image. So I'll just click on Save. Save it to somewhere on your computer where you can remember where it is. So put it on your desktop or something like that, hit save, and save it to that location, and then you should be ready to go ahead and upload that to Facebook. So all you have to do is come back here, mouse over your icon, click on Edit Profile Picture, hit Upload Photo, and then find that photo on your computer and upload that photo so that you can use that as your new default. So that is how I would go about doing that, how I would create an image that fits in here well, that isn't overstretched or isn't falling off the edges or the constraints of this box that they give you. Play around with that and use whatever software you have at your disposal to try and make the most out of that. Like I said, you can get Photoshop CS6 right now for free if you go over to Adobe Labs website, which I believe is labs.adobe.com. You can also get Pixelmator for the Mac by going into the Mac App Store. I will also post links to these software programs over in the notes for this video. So go and look for those links underneath this video so that you can just click and go and get these the software that fits your needs.